If you're not white, you don't have the right to speak English. And if it were up to me, it would be a capital crime. It would be a capital crime to teach you English. It would be a capital crime for you to speak English. And it would be a capital crime for you to speak any other language inside the borders of this country. That's how far I would take things. I think that's the most toxic you can get. Find someone with a more toxic attitude and I'd love to meet them. Hey guys, this is John with the Alpha Channel update for Saturday, July 6th, 2024. And today we have on the Wildwood Tarot. We're going to start with the Wildwood Tarot today because I am going to rip into Conan again. This is the Hooded Man card with a little bit of dialogue box over it. Today we have the Ace of Vessels, the Waters of Life. So this is a spring through a cleft stone in a forest clearing that is feeding all the local wildlife. I love these cards. They're so honest and pure and inspirational and about nature. There's actually, I just thought of this, there's a little pond, a little spring, probably a man-made spring up here in the Hollywood Hills. It's not in the Hollywood Hills. I think it's called Montecito Heights. Down near downtown Los Angeles, there's a little bit of hills. And there is a lake up there that overlooks the freeway and downtown. And it's raised up above everything. And it's really kind of amazing. You can go from looking at the water, you're standing on a little shore, and turn and be looking down a huge mountainside to downtown in the distance. It's really pretty cool. It's called Ernest R. Debs Park, I believe. Maybe. I'm not quite sure. But it's here in LA. And so yeah, this is the Ace of Vessels, the Waters of Life. And I like the back too, how it's a reflection right there. It's really pretty cool. Today, I do have some art I can show off, but I think I'm going to wait until tomorrow. I got to draw almost all day today, so I'm really happy. I had an awesome day today. I watched Shelby Robertson's live stream this morning, and he was drawing Zealot, which is one of Jim Lee's characters from, I think it's the book Wildstorm, or Wildstorm was the label, and it was the book Wildcats. But Jim was in the chat. Jim Lee was in the chat, and he offered to buy the picture off Shelby, which is just, I love the internet. It's so amazing. We're so lucky that it's free, and I don't know how long it will be. I suspect that if they really want to get control of the world, we'll have a crash. We'll have a crash, and there will be no more freedom on the internet. They will rebuild everything from scratch, and it will be a tyranny that makes V for Vendetta look silly. Imagine if there's an Ayn Rand book, I believe it's called The Night of January 16th, but it might also be Anthem. I think it might be Anthem, where the characters aren't given names and they really don't understand the concept of having a name or being an individual. And some of them escape or they meet someone else from somewhere else. It's a very short book. It's almost a pamphlet. It's kind of a parable of a story. Really kind of a short, probably too long for a short story, but way too short for a novel. And, that had got me thinking, you could train people with all sorts of language. You could teach people with colors. You could keep people in an isolated place where certain colors mean different things and they never hear sound or they never hear the spoken word. I hope the Jews don't take that idea. But this is Conan 242 with a cover by Jim Lee today. And Red Sonja's there on the cover. She's in the book. There are some literature missteps in this one. There's a big opportunity in this comic. I love the splash page. It's a lot like the last splash page. It's Conan on the horse. He's an isolated character on the horse alone. It's really kind of a poster shot. There's these two gargoyles overhead. Now the gargoyles are not on a bridge, but Conan's on a bridge. And in the story, the gargoyles are on a bridge. This looks like they're on a, maybe they're, no, they're not. They're just on the roadside. But these are the gargoyles. These gargoyles are a little bit further down the road from the bridge where Conan just had a big fight with a troll. And they look like they're on the bridge. They're the same sort of white painted wood that look like they're from, I don't know, some elven homeland. And as Conan's riding past them, they don't move. But he lops off one of their hands, and then they come to life and begin plaguing the travelers. This is really sort of a Dungeons and Dragons encounter sort of moment. It's a scene. It's a short story. And as soon as they discover that, now remember, they're on the way for Red Sonja to be wed to the Lord of this Dominion, who, very interestingly enough, I failed to mention this on the last one, and this is part of why I think there's some nonsense going on. So this episode, the Lord of this manor is named Elrond, E-L-R-O-N, which could be like Jor-El or Kal-El or the Elohim, but I'm guessing that this is obviously Jewish influence. The E-L is Jewish influence, Hebrew influence, but I'm guessing that in this case they're making fun of L. Ron Hubbard, who was hosting the Science Fiction Awards, which is a big writing contest, a science fiction writing contest. I'm sure it was still being held back then. L. Ron Hubbard, before he developed Scientology, was a big science fiction writer. So you obviously see the Jews and culture and made-up religions go hand in hand. And wannabe tyranny. L. Ron Hubbard started a tyranny. Scientology can easily be referred to as a tyranny. I've been watching what's been going on with Braille skateboarding. I had this in an earlier one of these where I talked about Braille and what they're doing and what they're doing wrong, what Aaron Cairo is doing wrong. And I believe that I have a right to speak about this because what I'm doing isn't just literature. What I'm doing is branding. And what Braille skateboarding is doing is branding. What Marvel Comics is doing is branding. So the people who have an opinion about this are people who are pursuing the same sorts of things. Clearly, I have a right to an opinion. And what I see Aaron Cairo doing versus, say, Powell Peralta has DeVille Nunez as a team manager, whereas Nike has like Mike Sinclair. I think Mike Sinclair has been doing it for 20 years for Nike as a team manager. And if you watch Nine Club, skateboarding is a really small community because there's such a high bar of competency to get over. And it's not the tricks. It's your first ollie. It's learning how to ride the skateboard and falling down over and over and over again for weeks before you ever even come close to ollieing. That is the competency. Everything after that, when you get good enough to be doing tricks, the tricks are all relatively the same. Then it becomes about your personality. And it becomes about you not being a jerk and not being a drug addict and showing up on time. So if I had known those, now skateboarding has evolved over my lifetime. When I was a kid, people like Tony Hawk were getting sponsored at 14 and 16 by companies like Powell Peralta and Bones. So what has happened now is it's become so ubiquitous and so pervasive that a guy like Aaron Cairo, who doesn't really, I hate to use the phrase fit in with a lot of the different skate teams, but let's face it, skateboarders are culture makers. And the aggression that someone like Mike Vallely has when he goes on to be the lead singer of Black Flag, or the culture of the misfits that skateboarding has grabbed and run with. Zero has the license to all the misfits stuff. This is Die Die My Darling. This is a Misfits song. So Zero produces all the Misfits stuff for skating. And the Misfits really are the band for skating. The energy, the time period, the nonsense lyrics that are just raw aggression. That, like you see all these celebrities wearing Misfits t-shirts and they might own an album, but they probably couldn't tell you the title of it. And they certainly wouldn't be able to tell you more than one or two songs. I promise you they don't know the names of any band members except Glenn. And they probably don't know his real name. So, what does that have to do with Marvel Comics? Aaron Cairo started a skate team called Braille up in San Francisco. And it happened that they were renting property from Lighthouse for the Blind, and his name was Braille, and like he'd already picked that. I have nothing but respect for what Aaron Cairo tried to do. It was a huge lift, and I think he did a lot of good for a lot of people. The people he didn't do any good for were the people on his team. Ricky Glazier, Uzi, Nigel, Gabe. He didn't look after them. Glow, who am I forgetting? Mowgli. He didn't look after them the way they needed him to. What artists are looking for, look, what everyone is looking for in an employer, what's missing in today's world is the company that gives a shit. These companies, Marvel included, do not give a shit about their core customer base. They sacrificed their base customers in pursuit of new customers, and they've ended up with no customers, which is the fractured fairy tale about the angry little dog who gets a steak that's the size of his head. He's walking over a bridge, he looks into the water, he sees another dog with a steak, and he barks, and the steak falls into the water, and now he has nothing. And that's what Marvel Comics has done to itself. Conan is written for guys like me. Conan is toxic masculinity at its finest. That's what it's supposed to be. If you go watch The Girls, I'm going to recommend The Girls Popcorn in Bed. You can't make Marvel movies for those girls. First off, they don't have the media background, the media education that the male audience does. The male audience loves war movies, so they've seen all of them. They speak a common language. The female audience loves romance movies. They've seen all of them. They speak a common language. Which has probably been one of the big failures of my dating life, I'm not a fan of romance. The genre feels trite and cliche and hackneyed and manipulative to me, which is probably why most women come across as manipulative and hostile most of the time. Not just to me. I mean, every guy who's in a great relationship will tell you everything about his wife is awesome, but all other women are fucking danger. So why is that? It's because of how you've chosen to represent yourself in today's culture. And maybe you haven't chosen it. Maybe the Jews have chosen it for you. The way they've chosen to represent guys like me as the greatest threat to the entire world. And then stupid people pick that up and run with it. Low IQ populations in this country pick that up and run with it. And they're supposed to, because that's what they do. They're golems, which is interesting about this book. More golems in here. This is so Jewish. This is so Talmudic. This is not white anymore. 240 issues. It's completely corrupted, and the storytelling is nothing close to Robert E. Howard's. And how does that relate to Braille skateboarding? So what Aaron Cairo did wrong, Aaron Cairo is in Scientology. What's interesting about Scientology and L. Ron Hubbard and Tom Cruise went to Scientology because you Jews are fucking chasing it. The way you got Quentin Tarantino to marry a Jew, the way a lot of big actors are married to Jews, you're somehow paying Jews, you're somehow betraying their own race for Jews constantly. And that's what's going on here. And that's unfortunately what happened at Braille. Aaron Cairo was lucky enough. So there's another guy on YouTube named Dan Corrigan who goes out and films his friends skating. And he was able to make a living doing that on YouTube. And he's solely focused on that. And he had a rough time of it before that. Have never gone through the struggles a lot of the pro skater guys have gone through. A lot of them have been homeless, sacrificed living in an apartment to to find a way to do skating, whether that's working minimum wage jobs in skate shops or ramp shops or whatever they can do. Dan has a really great outgoing personality. He's really likable by most of the people in the skate parks. They're not an easy crowd to please. Believe me, they're not. So Dan is able to make a living for himself where he's going out and shooting his friends every day and uploading videos every day. There's a few other guys doing it too. A lot of the names, if you're in the skate community, you'll recognize Bendigo, John Hill, Dale Decker. Dan was able to do this for a living, and he eventually got picked up by the Pal Peralta team, which sell a ton of boards and wheels and shirts. And so they're set as a company, like they're set as a brand. They've been around really since the beginning. Stacy Peralta, Dogtown, they, on the scene from the beginning. And Dan got picked up by that team. And now Dan is doing that for Pal Peralta, but he's also doing it on his own. He also does it on his own. Not everything he shoots is with the team. So what Aaron Cairo did, Aaron Cairo started his own brand and then hired people to do daily skate park footage. Whether it's teaching people how to do ollies and kick flips or they eventually opened what is called Braille House, and it's a massive warehouse with a bunch of ramps, and they had guys in there every day, and Aaron was paying them as little as he could and get away with it. And these guys were all going through the struggles that minimum wage kids go through. The travesty that happened between Chris McNugget and Ricky Glaser should have never happened on Aaron's watch. Having been in the Marine Corps and knowing what leadership is and being a big brother, I was not the best big brother. I could have been a much better big brother to my brothers and sisters, and any of them watching this will tell you that I failed them, abandoned them, this or that. But the truth is, I chose not to fight my parents for the government of their family. They wanted to run their family the way they wanted to run it, and it was not my place to undermine them. I believed that, and I let them do it the way they wanted to. And I think a lot of my brothers and sisters resent me for that. They feel like I could have been a better buffer between my parents and them. And I could have, but it would have required me sacrificing everything I am. And I was not willing to die on that pyre. I felt the best thing I could do for my brothers and sisters was to set the best example by being as independent of my parents as I could. And mostly, honestly, it was the alcoholism. So I have a big issue with that in my life. Alcoholics are utterly, you cannot negotiate with them in any way. You're just at the whim and whimsy of the disease. So Braille, what happened with Braille, Chris McNugget and Ricky Glaser rented a house together, and Ricky Glaser decided to leave the team before the lease was up. And instead of insisting that McNugget leave the house also, because neither of them have a lot of money, they couldn't afford it. If Aaron Cairo had paid them the way I feel he should have, it wouldn't have been a problem at all. These kids should have been getting $100,000 each year. Now maybe he couldn't afford that, but he could afford to give $700,000 to Scientology. So now Braille House is gone. It's no more. They had to rip it down because he can't pay his bills. And literally the day before he had to sign the deal to rip it all down, he broke his foot and had to get 2 steel plates and screws put in his foot. So you know what? It's not my place to judge what Aaron is doing right or wrong, but I know what I don't want to do at a studio. I know that I don't want to exploit my artists, my athletes, not even mine, my friends. Can you call them your friends if you're exploiting them? My coworkers, they're not my anything. I don't want to exploit artists in pursuit of money. My goal is to find a way for us to all work together on things that we love and are proud of. No one's proud of this. Jim Lee is maybe the only person involved in this issue who's proud of it. Gary Hartle is on the pencils, but the inker, it's a new inker, and he made Conan look pretty hideous in a lot of frames. Too much ink on the face makes a male character just look ridiculous. So, and also in this whole book, Conan is basically cucked by this character Elron. So Red Sonja's deal is that she's not going to sleep with a guy unless he can beat her in battle. But she fights so hard that for anyone to beat her, he'd have to kill her, right? So Conan has always kind of gone easy on her, and there's been moments where he could beat her and then doesn't take the final blow. And it even happens in the fight that they have in here. So here this Elron character explains that Conan had been to this castle in the past. He killed some wizard Zukola there. And here's the opportunity I wanted to talk about too. A literature opportunity in this novel, this issue, this story, this literature that they could have done, that they could have executed better. There's something called secret knowledge, where some of your characters know something that the other characters don't. They use this a lot in drama, in soap operas. Shows like Downton Abbey, it was constantly used. Shakespeare abused this to no end, where, say, 3 of the characters in the room know something about the 4th character that he doesn't, and you're just waiting to see who's going to tell him first, and then you have little scenes, and they all maybe hint at whatever is going on. And So this is the same sort of thing. All these people know something that Conan doesn't, and at no time is that information, is that detail used in the storytelling. That detail, that secret information, could have been exposed with a little conversation, say, between Red Sonja and the priest who's going to marry her. I believe his name is Catharides or something like that. He's in here. He's the black guy. He's the bald black dude right here. So Red Sonja could have had some conversation with him where they exposed the fact that this guy is this wizard's son that had previously killed Conan, or Conan had previously killed his father. And it's just nonsense. Basically what I'm complaining about is that the way to get out of every scene, they bring in some other piece of nonsense information or some new character. That happens here too. It doesn't advance the plot. What it does is it kind of retards the plot. It muddies it up and it drags it down. Bringing in a new character or exposing a new piece of information instead of confronting the dilemma, like that's also the other thing in this issue. There's no dilemma, it's only kind of a problem. There's a difference between a problem and a dilemma. A problem is something that once solved, your life goes back to normal. A dilemma is something that once solved, even once solved, your life will never be the same again. So this is not a dilemma. This is kind of a problem. This is really anti-white humiliation ritual for Conan, where he gets cuckolded by this wannabe, like, fashionable wizard guy who's going to marry Red Sonja. Oh, here is our obligatory flashback where we see how he beat her. So when he first met her, he immediately proposed to her like a simp. Like, he got down on one knee and immediately asked her to marry him. And then she said, well, I won't marry anyone who can't beat me in a sword fight. So he immediately attacked her and then disarmed her. Like, he did some, rapier sword trick where he disarmed her. And so then Conan says, well, she must have been drunk or fucking tired. And then she hits him with a mutton leg and goes to change out of her doeskin bikini or doeskin dress for the chainmail bikini and comes back to attack him, right? She comes back and she and Conan are going to have a fight now because he talked shit about her. And he, when does it happen? Flips her on her ass. And then conveniently stumbles and lets her toss him into a table. So this is nonsense. This is, again, more I hate saying this. Conan is so easy to do right. It's so easy to get right. They got it right for hundreds of issues. Savage Sword, I read every issue of Savage Sword and never had this kind of response. But we're going to find out because we're going to review those too. There's only so many of these, and eventually I'll be done with them. And then we'll do the King Conans I have, and then we'll dig into the Savage Sword. The Savage Sword is black and white, and I don't mind that, but it won't pop as much on the computer, on the camera. So here Conan is kicked out after his fight with Red Sonja, and he sneaks back in. There's also some nonsense, I'm going to point this out, where this bad guy, Elrond, sends a tiny little demon who looks like Lockheed from the X-Men to warn the demon sitting on the borders of his property, telling him not to attack Conan. And you see the little Lockheed character come and meet this demon here, where he's sitting watching in the foreground, and you really can't see him. And then we get another panel where when Conan goes back, this guy is sitting, and now he's got his back turned to Conan, and he can't even see him. He's completely ignoring him. But all of that's unnecessary. That's just a couple pages of Conan riding a horse around, which I guess is fun. Then we have him sneak back into the castle to find that the dining room is empty. And here's where we get into more anti-white Talmudic propaganda. So Elrond, the wizard who's cuckolding Conan, is summoning up his dead father, who is a wizard / god. Not just a demon / wizard / god. Like, at first he was a wizard, and now he's a / demon, now he's a / god. And Conan and the writers point that out. They object to this. They say it's bullshit. But there's that old saying that by calling attention to a plot hole, you make it easier for the audience to get past it. And so here's the golem. This wizard then conjures up a golem for Conan to fight. And now this is all in service to Red Sonja. Oh, I forgot to say, this ceremony, this ritual that Conan interrupts is for this wizard's father. This is what they want to do. Elrond now has Red Sonja in a hypnotized state. He's going to impregnate her, and the wizard's, this spectral ghost demon, his father, is going to go into the newly impregnated child inside Red Sonja. And if that's not Jewish magic, I don't know what is. That is absolutely Jewish ritual mysticism. These are the people stealing babies' foreskins. These people are terrible. And so now we have here this Blanca demon who's fighting Conan. And like that was pretty much it, because there is no resolution. The Blanca demon, this is kind of hilarious. The Blanca demon asks for permission to kidnap Conan to the warp realm, to the hell, into the other side, basically the warp storm in Warhammer, and he is granted permission. So Conan has been kidnapped by a demon into hell. He is no longer a member on the mortal plane, and Red Sonja has been abandoned to her fate, mesmerized as the captain of this wizard wannabe stand-in for L. Ron Hubbard in some Jewish fever dream where they're mad at L. Ron Hubbard for competing with their wannabe takeover of Western civilization, which is now falling apart. I also got to watch Thomas Rousseau today. Oh, you guys are hearing my phone go off. Let's move that. I got to watch Thomas Rousseau's interview with Patrick Bet-David. I was in Patriot Front for a while before Charlottesville. I had been vetted by Vanguard probably a week before Patriot Front started, and so I just kind of got grandfathered in. There was only one other Patriot Front guy out here in LA, and he's moved back home. He was super cool. I went to Art Institute of Los Angeles, Santa Monica. He went to Art Institute of Orange County, and got to work on a bunch of really big superhero movies where he got to help do cinematics for the fight scenes, which as little kids wanting to do animation and comic books, that is a lifelong dream. I'm crushed that he had to leave the industry, because that is just something you want to be able to tell your grandkids. But now that the industry is so anti-white, it really is probably for the best. But anyhow, I saw a bunch of the stuff. They were marching in Tennessee today. Patriot Front is not feds. Patriot Front is good, hardworking white Americans who want our country back. This is our country. It's not yours. I'm going to say some really racist stuff right here. This is as toxic as I can possibly be. If you're not white, you don't have the right to speak English. And if it were up to me, it would be a capital crime. It would be a capital crime to teach you English. It would be a capital crime for you to speak English. And it would be a capital crime for you to speak any other language inside the borders of this country. That's how far I would take things. I think that's the most toxic you can get. Find someone with a more toxic attitude, and I'd love to meet them. So you guys should go to Daily Stormer. You should go to Stormfront. I am as militant a white guy as any militant black person is. That's my attitude. So, mutant and proud, you ain't got nothing on us. The mutants never conquered shit. We decimated continents, as they say. So yeah, that's where I'm at. See you guys.